Good afternoon. Andrew Benioff for the Lendrock blog and the Independent Lodging Congress. We're here at the Independent Lodging Congress here in Philadelphia for our 2014 meeting. And I have with me today Anwar, the founding partner of the design agency, as well as Josh Wyatt, director of Patron Capital Partners. We are talking today, well, let me give you a little bit of background about Anwar and Josh. First of all, Anwar and Josh, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As founding partner and principal of the design agency, Anwar has previously worked with the likes of David Chang from Momofuku for their Toronto outpost at the Shangri-La Hotel, and collaborated with Nick Jones as the local design partner for Soho House Toronto. Anwar was recognized as one of the 7 2014 Wave of the Future designers by Hospitality Design magazine. Josh Wyatt serves as Director of Hospitality and Leisure at Patron Capital. He currently manages approximately 250 million euros of equity, with the primary focus being Generator Hostels. Mr. Wyatt and Anwar have collaborated on the development of Generator Hostel, a leading collection of 8 hostels in Europe, which will soon be opening new locations in Paris and Rome. So today we're going to be talking mostly about Generator Hostel. Independent lodging properties such as hostels are often recognized for their unique design and architecture. Tell us about the process of working together to develop Generator's unique concepts.
Sure. So I'll talk really quickly about sort of how it came to be, and then I'll turn it over to Anwar to talk really about the creative process and design and whatnot. But in looking at creating a new product, you have to really think about how you're balancing out the many different constituencies that come into play in doing the deal. So trying to think about, what is the right building to actually purchase, what do the economics look like in the deal, and then trying to really find an angle to it to say, okay, look, we've been able to find something special from a real estate perspective, but now actually let's layer in the magic and the creativity and the design into the property to actually drive a better financial return. And that's how we really started to look at hostels from the Patron Capital perspective. And a little over about 7 years ago, we started to come up with this concept of using highly dense lodging metrics, i.e. putting multiple people into a room, and then designing around that and trying to really find a solution to fit an extraordinarily high amount of people into a property and then create beautiful spaces for them to interact. And that's how we came to work with Anwar and the design agency, whereby we said, look, we have a need to create a fun, safe, stylish, and really special atmosphere in these spaces, but back up at the rooms, they have to be quite basic. So we spent some time discussing that and looking at how we could do it. And from there, we basically went around Europe and we bought a number of these different buildings, and we're currently looking in the U.S. as well. So I'll turn over to Anwar just to talk a little bit about the creative process and how we sort of marry up both angles.
And before you go into the creative process, about how many people per room generally?
So we average about, per property, we average about 60,000 square feet of total space, usually between about 175 to 225 keys, and on average about 4.5 beds per key. Meaning that we have a diverse amount of different types of rooms. We have a standard twin, 2-bedroom room that would just be similar to a small budget hotel concept. We have a 4-bedded room, we have a 6-bedded room, we have an 8-bedded room. So if you think about hostels and how to successfully lay a hostel out, it would almost be like an airline. So if you think about how the airlines, if you're flying transatlantic, there's usually 4 cabins in an airplane. You have the cheap economy tickets, which are usually very price-sensitive travelers looking for a deal, and they really don't care how they get there. They just want to get from point A to point B for the cheapest possible price. In the hostel space, that would be like an 8-bedroom. And then you have a area in the economy section that typically has a little more legroom, a little more privacy. That may be slightly more expensive. That would be our 6-bedded room. And then you have a business class, which has more privacy, a little more comfortable, a little more accoutrements in the room, or in the seats. For us, that's our 4-bed, and then you have the first class, which is basically our premium private rooms. You're paying typically triple in price per bed for that room. So that's how to think about it.
Very interesting. Okay, Anwar, let's talk about design for a moment.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
by the way, before we start on design,
Yeah.
can you show us your sneakers for a second? Those are really cool sneakers.
they might reflect the.
There you go, those are nice.
They might reflect the light a little bit there, but.
No, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like Josh was saying, on the design side, almost 5 years ago, it was really the opportunity for us to take Josh's vision to kind of figure out what the DNA of a 21st century hostel might look like, or
Sure.
what's the new evolution of design within the hostel space. So we tried to create a narrative that would speak to each location, each city being specific to its own kind of culture and its own kind of curation of the local talent and things like that. So I mean, one of the questions that we talked about was, should all these hostels look the same? That was definitely on the table at one point for a very short amount of time. And, we thought that with design we could create this sense of journey for now throughout Europe, where people would, it wasn't really a hotel, it wasn't really a hostel, but people looked forward to getting to the new or the next generator in a new city, because there was this element of surprise and this element of design, and it was super cool, and it was all about the common spaces. And like Josh said, the rooms were just pretty basic, standard, everything you need. A good mattress, a really hot shower, lots of hooks, and safe, clean atmosphere. But it was really about the cafe, the chill out space, the restaurant, the lounge, all these spaces where people would interact. And what was great about Generator is that Patron had the foresight to buy an existing company that had 2 hostels. So we got to go into an existing concept, so to speak, right, that had been running for, I think, about 7-8 years before.
Yeah.
Right, so it had already this old hostel DNA. And so that helped us figure out what we weren't going to do, or how to kind of evolve what it needed to be.
Sure.
And we took cues from other hotel groups and what was happening in the boutique hotel world, and so it wasn't completely reinventing the wheel, but it was kind of almost curating and picking the best parts and making the statements and the surprises and the design moves that you might see in some of Starwood Properties or an Ace Hotel, or but we were obviously catering design-wise to a bit more of a younger demographic to start, but it's really evolved now because now Generator, with all the locations that we have and sort of our being relevant in the market and being somewhere where especially with the economy, people can see they can go to a really stylish design place. We get business travelers who come in and stay, and they share like a 4-bedroom, and it's not just about the backpacker, or it's really diverse. So we try and design with that in mind, so that you can have all those people kind of rubbing shoulders and interacting, and it's a really nice vibe and energy to see in these hostels, where you see actually people interacting. A lot of the times it's either groups, or a lot of times it's solo travelers, and there's this really nice sort of community that gets created by the design and by the staff. And I think what we tried to do with the design translates then through to all the other creative aspects of Generator, and that's events, the programming, the music. It's really special what it's evolved into.
You bring up a